And I'm going to spray my throat. I shot myself.
Oh, no. The human esophagus is so
Sorry.
fickle.
Pardonnez-moi. Greetings, Mr. Harris.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Awesome.
I want to thank you so much for joining us for episode 1 in our soon-to-be the ABCs of Equity podcast.
Yay.
Let me introduce you to my co-host and producer, Dan Maxon.
Nice to meet you, Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Maxon.
Can you hear?
Awesome.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And Dan, this is Loren Michaels Harris, dear friend of mine. And we're going to take you on a little journey today, if that's all right.
Excellent.
All right. So, Loren, welcome to the studio. In a manner of speaking, Dan and I are here in the studio. You're visiting us via StreamYard from your new home studios, Imagine Studios in Naperville. And it looks absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's really exciting. You're the first show that I'm a guest on since I moved down here. And there's actually another set for that. But I didn't want to just be sitting in a living room setting for you, so I left it with the morning show.
No, I love it. It's perfect.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited for you, both of you.
Thank you.
I'm really excited. Long time coming.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see you're stepping inside your purpose.
Thank you. You are a beautiful example for that, my friend, and a big part of that happening for me. And that's really why I wanted to talk to you today. You are a deeply important part of my understanding around equity, and especially that access piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
So today I want to talk to you a little bit about what you're doing now first, and then we're going to go into a conversation that I think has been a long time in coming with us too.
Yes.
And I'm really excited for that because I think that it will really help people understand access, and something that the ABCs of Equity is about is understanding the prices we pay for our access. And that probably resonates, huh?
A little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Am I allowed? I just want to know because it's your show, not mine.
Right.
Am I allowed because I know I'm going to do it because it's like habit, but the bell of purpose is like 4 inches from me.
That's all right, honey.
Ringing it on my show. So I'm just letting you guys know when you hear that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's when you want to take note when you're editing, Dan.
I'll try to not do it too loud, Dan.
All right. So let's see. You always do such an amazing job of keeping me updated about what's going on with you, especially, when super special things, super exciting things happen. You're so good at including people from your history who are a part of your now, And sometimes before COVID, because I happen to be married to your official photographer, Scott Gane.
Yes.
I get invited to glitz and glamour, like yours and Brian's wedding.
Yes.
Like X Factor.
The Next Impactor.
The Next Impactor, sorry.
I'm trying to keep you from getting sued by ABC.
Oh, yeah, that's probably a good thing. The Next Impactor. I keep seeing that X in my brain. That's why I did that. Say it again.
Do we ring the bell now?
Yeah, ring the bell to cut that out, right?
Right. Oh, right. There. Edit that.
Good. But especially, I really want to talk about the power of we. Yeah. Because this episode is called The Power of Access in honor of your power of we endeavor. So talk to me a little bit share with us about the red carpet and why you do that for those kids, and kind of give us some history.
Oh, be happy to. And what a great, your timing is impeccable, I guess I should say, because today, just a few hours ago, our tickets for this third Power of We Symposium went on sale just this morning on Eventbrite. So we've got that out today. It is April 28th here in Chicago on down at the Stan Mansion in Logan Square. We launched the Power of We, the first one, in 2018. And the Power of We, it's interesting. Well, what it is, let me tell you what it is before I tell you how it became to be. What it is a day of celebration. It's a one-day event where we bring in 250, what I refer to as youth ambassadors from around some of the hardest hit areas of the Chicago area. The ones I specifically went directly to places like Inglewood, Inglewood with an E, which is one of the areas that is always just hard hit on the news. They just pummel everything that they can put on the news negative usually originates there, one of 2 or 3 areas that they focused on primarily. And I went to the schools there and I did a lot of meetings with alder people and that sort of thing. And it wasn't easy. As a matter of fact, we missed out on, I think, 60 some kids that first year because some of the adults in that area dropped the ball and there were no chaperones, but the kids were ready to come. And I'll never forget that, because that day when we had to remove those chairs off the floor at the Stan Mansion, every time I went back to the staging area where the food people and the caterers and everybody was at, I couldn't help but keep looking at those stacked chairs and wondering, where were those kids today? Right. And imagine how I felt 4 days later when I found out that 2 of those kids had actually gone to Calumet City on a bus and went to the mall there. And there was a shooting outside that mall. It's on my website, powerofwesymposium.com. You'll find that news and everything. But 2 of those kids that were supposed to be there that day did what kids did. They had permission slips already in hand and went off and found themselves, unfortunately, in the wrong place. And both of those kids lost their lives that night.
Oh, God.
Yeah, about 2 17-year-olds, random. Never found the person who did it. So I go to sleep with that and I wake up with it. So I say this, the Power Way Symposium is to bring people together that ordinarily most likely would never meet. Take these kids inside of an experience that they most likely at this point in their lives have never had. So we go to opulent venues. In Chicago, it's the Stan Mansion. When we were in Atlanta in 2018, it was at the Biltmore Ballrooms. And I do that because I really stole a page from the Willy Wonka book, Willy Wonka playbook, if you will, where, the wrought iron, the first thing I look for is there a wrought iron fence, because I like the kids to watch us, the and the facilitators, walk the red carpet, stand in front of the step and repeat in our, black tie, tuxedos and evening gowns. And then we actually come out and go around and come out on the street and meet with them and ask them pretty much, well, what do you think you just witnessed? And they'll say, oh, we saw a bunch of celebrities, or we saw some stars. And I'll say, well, that's what we thought you'd say. But guess what? We're just older versions of you. And we are people who have come through things. We've made it through things just like you will. And it's okay to be a stargazer, but if you come in today and you keep your heart and your mind open and you participate and you pour into and allow yourself to be poured into by us, you very well could walk out those doors. Instead of being a stargazer, you could be a trailblazer. And that's what we're hoping for today. And I've kept in touch with a lot of these kids. They've gone off to college. The original Power of We kids are now juniors, are in their junior year in college. And all of the kids that you see in our promo on the Power of We Symposium site, all 9 of those kids received academic scholarships to Ivy League schools, and they're all still there, all doing really well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So the Power of We is just a chance for kids to be heard. We have kids that get up and speak. They keynote. They talk about things that are important to them, things that they feel adults need to hear and do better with. and they also listen to what we have to say. And it's not pretentious. There's not, even though it's in a mansion, we don't have some big fancy lunch. We have box lunches. We turn the same chairs into semicircles or circles all around the ballroom. And we just have knee to knee, heart to heart, eye to eye conversation and fellowship, adult and kids. And one of the rules in the audience is adult kid, adult kid, adult kid. No two adults together, no two kids together, just adult kids, so that they're forced to talk to that person sitting next to them to the right or left. So that's what we do, and it is to empower the community and to empower the kids through community. So that's the power and I'm proud to say, after our second one in Atlanta, where we had one of our youth speakers was actually filming the real world with MTV, and MTV came for about 4 hours, and as a result we started trending, and the United Nations sent a representative down. Next thing you know, about 6 weeks later, called to New York to receive their GEM award, GEM, for Global Empowerment Movement.
Wow.
The second Power of We. It was our sponsorship video that got that award for us. So we're very grateful, very humbled, and very excited to be back in Chicago, April 28th, 8 a.m. till, it's a big full day. It's exciting. It's exciting at the Stan Mansion in Chicago. So.
That's amazing. Well, Scott and I look forward to being there yet again.
Yay.
Well, that's amazing. And that red carpet, for me, I shared with Dan, I'm looking at a picture from 2018 that you had posted with Jason Cisneros in the background between you and Brian walking down that red carpet. That's Brian is your husband. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what you say is, this is the photo that I spoke of this morning on Bathrobe Moments with Jason Cisneros. I have affectionately dubbed this photo the look. That look I see within Jason's spirit is that look that I have so longed for most of my life. It is a combination of many things, but most importantly, it is the answer to many prayers.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Oh man, just took me back to it. It's up on our mantle, and wow, I didn't expect this. I really didn't. It's, for those, I wish you guys could see the picture. You know how people say what really matters in life? Yeah. Are those moments of what you do when you don't even know people are watching? Mm-hmm. That came barreling in to my spirit when I saw that photo. And just on the phone with Jason this morning. Actually, he's my guest tomorrow.
Nice.
For moments. Yeah. And it's that look that I think every person who's ever dealt with any kind of trauma, any kind of pain, or anyone that's ever fought with the desire to stay in the game, i.e. stay alive and not take your own life. When you see that, it's unmistakable, it's undeniable. And it's just so validating. It really is. It's so validating. And if I had to have a handful of wishes for every person that walks this earth, that one would be one of them.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to feel what that is like, because it's just so worth it.
Yeah. I think that's what you do for those kids on that red carpet with the photographer and the glitz and the glam, is that they are being seen in that moment.
Yeah. And a lot of them too, they always say they like when they see the stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
See themselves in a different light.
Sure, of course.
Yeah,
And they get a little glimpse, maybe, hopefully, into their future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I just think that is beautiful. What you've done with the Power of We, what you have done with this one life that we are given, despite a whole lot of things. And the other thing that I want to talk about is the fact that you are a veteran.
I am.
And the other photo that I shared with Dan in our show notes, is, this one. of you on the cover of what's that, Shift Life Design magazine,
Yes.
which is a military magazine.
Yes.
And it says, inspirational speaker Loren Harris has a message of global unity. And the photo of you on that cover, I remember you telling me about it. And it is, you are a 4th of July baby.
I am.
And it's neat that it was the July, August issue that you were on, and that they have, I don't know if this was after the shoot, but they have painted on your body the American flag.
Oh no, that was actually at the shoot.
Body paint. Oh, that's amazing.
Body paint was that. Well, I knew I wanted something. I wanted it to be more than just, like some kind of a glamour shot,
Sure.
a vanity shot, if you will. I wanted it to be more of a message piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like, I don't ever want to be just, that's my second cover. The Global Achievers magazine, pretty straightforward business suit, almost like your Inc. magazine cover. That was the first one. And then now this one, I wanted it to be the kind of thing that made people want to know who that person was.
Mm-hmm.
And being a military magazine and being born on the 4th of July, I thought it was important to put that there because, there's so many things that in the United States now that people aren't proud of.
Right.
This shoot was actually just a few weeks after the insurrection in Washington. So that was bearing on people's spirits at the time as well. And I'm glad I had Virginia Rose Hodges. She's a celebrity photographer out of the DC area, Alexandria, Virginia area. And it was just amazing because I was like, I'd only used your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Every photo that I had up to this point, she was the very first person other than Scott to shoot me. And I was like, well, I wonder what, and I had her on my show a year before for Celebrity Week. And we became friends, and I said, well, I'm going to book a shoot with you. I don't know what it's for yet, but something will come up. And the minute I booked it, the Shift cover came. And
you have all kinds of those stories.
Manifestations.
Yes, but keep going with the photographer. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get there and we do a bunch of stuff because, she had 6.5 hours allotted.
Mm.
And I was like, well, I've been changing in the back seats of cars with Scott all over St. Joe and Benton Harbor and here in Chicago too.
Yeah. And Vegas.
In Vegas, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm good. I had everything ready. So we had like 3.5 hours left. When we had finished I had her do stuff for my master class, stuff for bathrobe moments, my show, just all the different avenues of the brand that I have. So I wanted something for all of them. And then we finally got to the cover and I came out and she did the painting. And then she said, she didn't let me look at it. I didn't know what it looked like. I could look down and see my chest, but I didn't see the thing on the eye or any of that. And so she said, just stand there. Now close your eyes, Loren. And I see why she's a celebrity photographer. And she goes, I want you to start with the most recent things, which was the insurrection, and then work backwards. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, things that may have happened or not happened inside of your military career, outside of your military career, going all the way back to your years in the foster system, the 22 mothers. She even said, because I had told her about what happened being falsely accused, about, in the area that, I was in Michigan. And then also, she said, and even think about what it was like during your 14-year drug addiction, homelessness, then all the things that come with it, incarcerations. And she says, and then when I count to 3, I want you to open your eyes and show me the face that has lived through all of that. And that's what happened. She counted to 3 and I opened my eyes and she shot that picture and she ran and she showed it to everybody that was there. She wouldn't show me. I didn't see him for weeks later.
Wow.
And everyone said, that's actually the very first photo she took when you opened your eyes.
Wow.
And so I learned a lot about, how, it's true when they say you cannot unsee what you've seen.
Yeah.
You cannot unhear what you heard. And we think that that's a negative. But in this case, it was a true blessing.
Mhm.
Grateful that I have never wandered or strayed too far from the core, the true ooey gooey chewy center of Tootsie Pop experience. No, because again, it's never about just the trauma.
Yeah.
There's always a blessing that comes with it. It's just born into the process of becoming, and we each have to be patient and wait for it to tell us it is time,
Yeah.
to pick that blessing up. It is a birthright. It's a birthright.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's how that happened, and I'm very proud of it.
That is beautiful. Knowing, we've talked about your husband, Brian, and you are a gay Black man who was in the military
Yes.
during Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yes.
And I can only imagine, between that and then being a gay Black man in St. Joseph, Michigan,
Well, you know what? It's interesting that you bring that up. And I think I'll break this story right here. A lot of people don't know this because no one's ever interviewed me about this, but it was like 7, maybe 8 weeks ago. Well, further than that, maybe 3 months, 4 months ago, when I was going through some CAT scans and things, which we found out was allergies to ragweed and stuff. But at the time, coughing and I thought I was dying. I really did. I thought I had cancer, this and the other. So anyway, while they're going through all my military files to see if there's anything that can lead them to what this is all about, they see something and then they pull me aside and they go, "Hey, we noticed that it looks like you had some military sexual trauma, MST, when you were in there." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Well, there was a situation." And I was like, "Oh, that." I had totally spaced it out, buried it, whatever. And they said, "That was grossly mishandled. And you most likely have a lot of PTSD from it." I was like, "What?" So they sent me in. I talked to somebody. They had me write what I knew from it first. That was 30 some years ago. And so they didn't show me anything from the files. They just said, "Tell us, write down what happened." And I did. And it was exactly like it was in the report 30 some years before. And they said, "Yeah, you were the victim."
Wow.
They didn't know how to handle it. So let's put it this way. I went from 0% service connected to 70%, which changed everything for me.
Wow.
And yeah, because I just was so amazed that I was like, how did I not know? I thought that all of my trauma, as far as sexual trauma, happened in foster care. I did not know that this was actually something as an adult and within the military. But they're doing better. They said that, the Obama administration put a lot of things in place to go in and find and extract these mishandlings, if you will, and do what they could to make them better. And I just am blessed to say that they found that indiscretion, and they have attempted to do something positive for me through it. So very grateful for that. But yeah, it was not easy. And in St. Joe Ben Harbor, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard there either.
No.
I mean, the good thing about it is, I'll be honest with you, I had more issues with my color there than I did my choice of who I choose to love, which is interesting in and of itself. But nonetheless, that's how it was.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're going to talk about a little bit of, pardon me. We're going to talk about a little bit about that in a minute, but I want to cover Listen to Your Mother first, briefly. Okay. You and I met because of Listen to Your Mother. Oh, you got your lunch.
Yes.
So Listen to Your Mother, for the folks listening, is a live staged storytelling show. And I was cast in the Northwest Indiana show in 2014, and I told my story about being suicidal as a young single mom. That was Northwest Indiana in 2014. And then in 2015, 2016, and 2017, I produced and co-directed with our mutual friend, the lovely Miss Beth Hare Lewis.
Yay.
Yay. We love her so much. So then she and I did the local show here in Southwest Michigan for those 3 years. So you and I have really only known each other since 2016, which is weird when I think about it, because it feels to me like we've known each other a lot longer. For me anyways.
Well, and that's a great point. I just want to say why I believe that is true, because I feel that way as well. Through my experience with you and your family and people like Beth, I've come to the conclusion, it's not about the time, the literal time we have. It's the quality of the time we spend and what we do with it. That's why it feels like, how can it only be 5-6 years? How can it? Really important point there.
Yeah, for sure. So after I was in Listen to Your Mother in Northwest Indiana, the following year, I had to pitch the founder and national director, Ann Immig, and her team to bring the show here to Southwest Michigan, to Benton Harbor, St. Joe, primarily. So when I won the rights, I was a stay-at-home mom before that, blogger, but I really wasn't living my life in a very large way. And here is when you would usually comment on, The King and I and Anna and tease me and give me a hard time.
So I wasn't going to bring that up.
Yeah, I peaked in high school, right?
No, you're not even close to peaking.
I hope you're right. I think you're right. I believe you're right, for sure. Well, so I had to figure out how to make it happen, after I won those rights, which is a whole nother show all in its own. So we'll maybe we'll have Ann Immig as a guest. That would be cool. Yeah, that would be great. But the dots that I really want to connect is that I thought that I was doing Listen to Your Mother for one reason. And it was a good reason. It was because I wanted to bring together the communities of Benton Harbor and St. Joe, those twin cities with remarkably different demographics. We're very, very segregated. But I wanted to bring those two communities together through the stories of motherhood. But so many times as white folks, we do things for these imagined benevolent reasons. But what I have learned from you since we have known each other, what you have taught me is how much deeper it all was. And what it meant for you, particularly for your access to be able to do the things that you've really dreamed of doing your whole life out in the world, but your freedom to accomplish those things, to gift the world with those things, were almost taken from you because of a racist court system, and particularly because of a horrifically racist judge.
Yep.
So first, I want to take you back to Listen to Your Mother and pardon me. So first, I want to take you back to Listen to Your Mother, to what I was experiencing that morning of our first rehearsal, which was a mandatory rehearsal, which you didn't show up for, with your incredible story, Lost or Found, about growing up in foster care and having 22 mothers, which you talked about a little before. And Beth and I, we had really cast the stories and built our whole show, we felt like, around your story. So you're not coming. I am freaking out. And Beth is freaking out. And she's she's off on the side texting, trying to figure out what's going on. And finally, she tells me, I think he may have gotten arrested this morning. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And I'm freaking out, but I told Beth, I said, I don't care if we have to go to the jail and record his story from there. He is going to be in this damn show. So, do you want to talk about the day of your arrest at all, or is that less important?
Oh, no, it's very important.
Okay, please do then.
It's pivotal.
Yeah.
Because, and I say this, I speak to anyone who has ever felt like something like if we were on Survivor, the show, #blindside,
Yeah.
where you wake up and something happens that you could have never seen coming. You know that your life will never be the same. You woke up one version of yourself, never to wake up that person again.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. Things were going well. And I got to remember, I have just finished a 24-month parole in Benton Harbor, St. Joe, living in St. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I in retrospect, many times I go, what in the hell were you thinking? Right? But I did. And I had also built my business, Events by Design, my event planning business, from the ground up during this 24-month parole. And had walked it down, was maybe 3 months from having gotten away from it all. And then there was a person who was still doing drugs and still in there. And, I think it was the first time I really thought I could try my hand at what I do on a global basis today with an individual. And so this person, I met this person through an ad for computer work. You need a computer person. So came and said, oh, you need a new, what do you call that thing? Tower, for your desktop and this and that. So took mine and brought in a new one. Well, I didn't know, I'm not very tech savvy, that you can go in there and get all the passwords and codes and all this stuff. And he did. And then after I had been trying to help, got this person, went to court, testified for disability and drove him around and got him to appointments and all this stuff, saying that you too, there's healing for you too. And then when I said, when I saw that, I heard a drug deal one night, I'll never forget. It was like midnight. I lived a couple of blocks from the guy. And I heard a drug deal. I know code when you're talking in code about a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited till he finished, and I was folding his laundry that I had done. And I was thinking, I have 3 baskets of dirty laundry at my own apartment. He has a washer and dryer. I have to go to the laundromat. Why am I sitting here doing this guy's laundry when he's on the phone cutting a deal? So I said, I'm done. I'm not coming back. Da, 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 da. He goes, if you don't come back, I'm going to make up a story. I've lived in this community all my life. I went to school I graduated with the prosecutor. I graduated with the current sheriff, and I'm white with no record. You're black with one, and they will believe me. I just am like, well, whatever, do what you got to do. And I left. And it was about 7 weeks later. And I'll never forget, I was going to sign a contract with the marina that day, Anchors Way Marina, to go and do their events and stuff. And it was the biggest contract Events by Design had potentially gotten at that point. And I was sitting there. I was on my way to the laundromat to do rugs. And I get a beep on my phone, and I looked, and it was the owner, one of the owners of the Anchors Way. And he goes, have you seen today's paper? And I was like, no. And he sent me the picture, and there I was on the front page, wanted, with 3 other people. Now, mind you, I had lived, at the time they took the report, I was actually living 60 feet from the police station on Court Street. Where I parked my garage, my car in the garage, was adjacent to the parking lot. I actually was training one of the officers, Jerry, who was, Jerry came to my wedding and stuff. I was training him in their gym. So I was in the police station gym every morning. And I had lost my wallet at the BP gas station. And the officer that left a card on my windshield was the same officer that went to this guy all those weeks before and took the false report. And he had already had that report when he put the card on I got your wallet. The BP called me. I have it. Come to the station, pick it up. I went, he was there. I picked it up. He handed it to me. Never said anything about, and by the way, there's a guy who made up a story, or he's put in a report.
Right.
Did this and did that financial transaction device, took money through credit cards or whatever he was saying. And so it was from the beginning, it was clear that it was, I don't know, I don't want to say set up or whatever, but even the other 3 people on the front page with me did our research. Those 3 people had been on the lam. They had absconded for a minimum of 3 months. Some of them had been missing for up to a year. They went in and did that for me in the middle of the night. Said, use this, and they used a mug shot and all this and all that. Anyway, so that's how I knew there was more to it. And then ended up pulling Judge Wiley, you know. And so that day was almost the end for me, honestly, because I went in and I put the rugs in in St. Joe across from Harding's. I put the rugs in, and then I was sitting in the car trying to figure out what to do next, and I panicked. So I called the police, and they were like, well, you got to come in and turn yourself. Now, I didn't realize they're pinging me on my phone now because they want to arrest me. So, and I could tell, because, are you going to hurt yourself? And I was like, no, but no, thanks for the idea.
Right.
I decided, well, maybe that's not such a bad idea. So I leave and I drive to my adoptive sister's house in Niles. Don't tell her much of anything, but I'm saying goodbye. And she stood outside watching me as I left. And I could tell she was looking at me like, why do I get the feeling I'm never going to see you again? And I was taking back roads from M140 between Bering Springs and Niles. My next stop was to see Uncle Walter, my uncle, who I kind of took care of. He was in an adult foster care in Bering Springs. So I snuck to his house, said goodbye to him, and he was doing the same thing. What's wrong with you? What's wrong, Loren? And I was like crying and stuff, and just, Uncle Walter, everything's going to be fine, because I really didn't know who was going to take care of him now. And then I went to my sister's house, and I left Uncle Walter, and then I went to back roads. I was trying to get to Coloma, to North Shore, to just spend some time with my birth mom at her grave before. And I was I'll never forget, I was on M140 in Waterville, making the back way to Benton Harbor. And I was sitting there, and there was a truck coming, 18-wheeler. And I was like, see, I could just pull out in front of it, and and it's moving pretty fast. It'll be over. And I really was counting down for the timing. And when I went to turn towards it, I'm not kidding you, the wheel was frozen. It would not move. I remember putting my foot down on the gas a little, and it was as if I were in park. It just went. And then when the truck passed, everything worked, and I turned, and I was like, okay, I must be, Mom, that must be you. You want me to see you before I'm on my way. So I was taking the back roads to get over to Red Arrow Highway, to get out there. And I went past my church, First Presbyterian, where Lori Hartzell.
Who married you and Brian.
Married us, who came to court every day. And Lori, it was Easter. It was Good Friday. And they were getting ready for the Easter thing where you can come through all the points at the church. And I was like, what are all those cars doing at the church? So next thing you know, I'm pulling in there. And I'm glad I did, because it was Lori, Pastor Lori, and Nancy, the choir director, who they had me in the office, and I was so paranoid. I'm not kidding. Every time they got me, where are you going? Because I thought they were going to try to turn me in or call them, thinking people were outside looking. It was horrible. And anyway, they convinced me that the best thing to do would be to turn myself in. And they drove with me to the police station, to the sheriff's department. And I did. And I turned myself in. And that's why that Saturday before Easter, when you had I could not, because I was still in lockup.
Yeah.
And that was that. So that was, the reason I said that was so important, it was pivotal, because I came closer, even though there was less planning for a suicide attempt. I really believe out of the 6 that I've had in my life, that one that day was the one that came the closest.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for something other than myself intervening, none of this would be. The legacy that I would have left would have been one that was not even close to the truth.
Yeah.
Not even close. Because I just figured, how is this going to happen? There's no way I'm 50 some years old at this point.
Right.
I didn't know what the charges carried, but I knew they said it's 6 counts. Then I found out it was 15 years for each one. Well, shoot, even if you get off on 5 and you have 1, that's 15 years. I'll be 70 years old. I was like, no, I ain't going out like that, is what I thought. But as fate and destiny and all those wonderful things, those birthrights, which belong to all of us,
Yeah.
purpose and truth, would have it, I made it through. You know, I find that I know now, and I speak to this from the stages and wherever I find myself. Before that day, I had been listening to people for so many years that would say, oh, Loren, why don't you just get over it? Oh, don't worry, Loren. You'll find a way around this. Oh, it's okay, Loren. You'll dig your way from underneath this. And I really thought those were people who had my best interest at heart, but they weren't. Those were people who ascribed to what I refer to as wall talk. Because, you know, that's what you do to a wall. You climb over it, you dig under it, or you skirt around it. But I've never heard of walls of opportunity. I've heard of doors and windows of opportunity, because I know today, as sure as I'm sitting here, that what is greater, whatever you ascribe to being greater than yourself, knows that if it can convince you to just find the courage to peek inside the window of an opportunity, you just might believe enough to turn the knob and walk directly into that opportunity. And that's why they're called windows and doors of opportunity. And so that was a big, big moment for me.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you know, when I was exonerated. You know, I remember standing there and how Judge Wiley had said, if you make one sound, you're going to jail, right? And after that 6 not guilty came out of the jury foreman's mouth, I didn't care. I just fell. Do you remember? I fell on the floor. I just fell on the floor, and I was just bawling because finally something in my world went right.
Yeah.
All I needed was that one opportunity.
Yep.
You know.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about between your arrest and the second rehearsal comes, which was also for Listen to Your Mother, which was also mandatory, and you're 20 minutes late because, as you told me when you came in, you had been sitting out in the driveway for 20 minutes, having such a hard time just getting out of your car and coming up to my door. And what I didn't know then was why. So talk to me about what you were worried about that day, and then, you know, what you were feeling sitting out in your car, not having told anyone, you know, what was going on. And then later, what was happening the night of the show.
Okay. Well, that day in your driveway, interestingly enough, that was the first of 2. I had that one. Then I had one a few years later, which I'll tell you about. In the Volvo dealership parking lot. Actually, that was the third one. There was a second one right after. You know, I had just started dating my husband. We had been together maybe 3 weeks when all this happened. Yeah, when all this happened. You know, and we're talking about a therapist. Richie Cunningham. I call him Richie Cunningham because, you know, green knows nothing about the streets, right?
Right.
When I drove him down the streets of Benton Harbor down there, he was like, so this is the ghetto. Right. And I was like, it doesn't look anything like I was told. Right. That literally happened. So anyway, I know, and you know, Brian, that's why you're laughing.
Yes, I love it.
I'm sitting out there, and I was so afraid of what people would say or the looks that I would see on their faces. And I'm walking into your house, which is St. Joe. And at this point, you know, I'm fighting to not buy into the white man is the devil kind of thing, including you, you know. But something, and I'm doing the air quotes, just kept telling me, one step at a time. This is where you learn how to swim within the pool known as trust. And when you get out, you will dry off with a towel of purpose. From then on, you will find out who you have always been, and you will be able to clearly see everything that has been riding sidecar along your journey. those things that are seen as well as those that have remained unseen and primarily felt, but with no proof. And so when I came in, it was because it was up to me. You know, for Bible believers, there's a passage in there that says, many are called and few are chosen. And I remember the day that what I ascribed to being greater than myself said to me and just whispered, you know, there's a third part to that, don't you, Loren? And I was like, no, I didn't. What is it? It said, where many are called and few are chosen. However, what most never realize is how few of those that are chosen find the courage to choose in return. And that was what I was finding my way to, the courage to choose to stand up no matter what. And it was just like the choice was made for me when I wanted to turn in front of the truck. But then from that point forward, it was now going to be my choice. And I knew that in the driveway. I knew that if I didn't make the choice in return, then I was going to make the wrong choice somewhere close to your driveway. So I went in and we went through it, and it still wasn't over. Because the night of the day of the performance, something was going on with that tether. And all day long, it kept going off. Low battery, call in. It even did it in Harding's. Started squawking, and I had to run and hide. I went in the bathroom and took my jacket off and tried to muffle it around my leg till it stopped doing it. And I was like, I am not going on that stage tonight because that's what's going to happen. Plus, the box was like the size of, I don't know, a telephone, and it was on my ankle. And I knew we'd be sitting on the stage at the St. Joe High School. And I knew that I just knew that no matter where I'm sitting in the row, most likely when you sit down, you know, your pants go up. And how am I going to cross my legs or hide that thing on my leg? So I had all these things going on, but something still told me, be there. So I did, and I went. And I wish the pictures now are there. It used to be behind me on the old set of the woman that is at the, do you remember her?
Erin?
The picture that Scott took of me and the woman.
Yes.
Where both of our hands are on our hearts and then our other hands are holding each other. And she was the woman that came up, you know how you guys had the tables with our pictures out there and people would come and sign them.
Yep.
You know, say, oh, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, blah, blah, blah. And before I could make my way to my picture to stand and greet people, she came up to me. I told you the story, right?
Yeah.
And how she said, I wasn't even supposed to be here tonight, but my neighbor had an extra ticket and I had a decision because I have 3 biological children at home. And we've been fostering, my husband and I, 3 siblings for 2 years. And tomorrow that time is up. And if we don't say that we will adopt them, they're going to take them away and they will be separated. And everybody wants to be a forever family, she said. But everybody doesn't understand that all of that falls to me. And I didn't know if I could do it. My children are off to college any second now, and these are little ones. She goes, I'd be starting it all over again. And I didn't know if I could do it. But tonight, after hearing your story, I just want you to know. And she grabbed me then and she goes, I want you to know I'm going home right now. And I'm going home to all 6 of my children and my husband. And I'm going to let them know that we will be a forever family. And that's when it just moved through me like, wow, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than me. And the second time that happened was right after the exoneration. We were taking pictures out front. And the jury was leaving and they were honking and rolling down their windows. And remember that, giving thumbs up and fist pumps and things like that. Still had the tether on my leg while we were taking group pictures. Suddenly, my attention was directed to a plastic cup that Pastor Lori had left under a tree right across from where we were taking the pictures because we were waiting for them to call us back in from lunch, the jury. And she had a clear from Zoop, the soup place. She had a clear iced tea cup. And she left it there half full when we went in. And we were only in there like 10 minutes. And on the way in, something Brian will tell you, we were holding hands. We were going in because we don't know if this is it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that whole last week, every Tuesday, every Monday, every Wednesday, every day that last week, I was like, is this my last Monday? Is this you can't make plans for anything because you don't know if I'm going to be free this time next week. I don't know, you know, and everybody's trying to like be positive. It's like, I can only imagine if you've got that, you know, you're on death watch, you know, you've got 6 weeks to live or something. I can't imagine. So we, you know, we were walking in and I turned around and Brian goes, what's wrong? I said, something tells me to go back and take a look at that cup that Roy put down. So I ran up to it and I'm looking at it. It's like, just a cup. I don't see anything. Okay. So we went in, got the 6 not guilty verdicts. We're out there. And while we're taking the pictures and they're honking and waving the jury, again, my attention was brought to that cup and I broke free. I said, hold on, you guys. And I went over there. The only thing different about that cup was there was one bead of condensation running down the side of it. And I heard that voice that said to me, take a good look at that drop of condensation. In the time it took for that one drop to form, we who are greater than you have given you back your life and more. Now go out and do something with this. And we got to the car, and I promise you, Michelle Madrid Branch was on my phone giving me my first opportunity to come on a national podcast and tell my story.
Isn't that something?
And here we are, literally 975 paid speaking gigs later.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I want to read to you what happened before the court case. You and I found ourselves at the same Race Relations Council meeting, and I was late, and I'll read my post from that day.
Okay.
Hashtag St. Joseph, mobilizing, hashtag Southwest Michigan, hashtag Allies for Harris, hashtag Wiley Watch, and friends, we need eyes on Judge Wiley in his courtroom, holding him accountable for giving Loren Michaels Harris a fair trial in which race is not a factor. Peter Johnson has oodles of evidence in Loren's favor. He has pages and pages of text transcripts. He has 47 character reference letters that Judge Wiley refused to review. I just left a Race Relations Council of Southwest Michigan meeting this morning. I didn't know Loren was going to be there. I had another meeting this morning and couldn't be there until after 11 a.m. Still, I heard enough. 4 times, Judge Wiley's name was mentioned, not by Loren. I was sitting next to Loren, who was becoming more visibly upset and terrified with every mention. Loren's life is in Judge Wiley's hands, and his race is not in his favor. The consensus among those in attendance was that the best way to force judges like Judge Wiley, like the judge in the Sanford case, to treat all defendants equally, fairly, honorably, and the same, regardless of their skin color or their socioeconomic status or their privilege or their gender, is to vote. That's one way. However, many years Judge Wiley has run unopposed. Loren and nonviolent defendants like him need our help right now. Please be there to support Loren Tuesday morning. Please sit in Judge Wiley's courtroom anytime you can. Take notes with old-fashioned pen and paper. Every time he rolls his eyes at the jury, every time he withholds evidence, write it down, speak out, write letters to the Herald Palladium, get active on social media. Put Judge Wiley on notice that we're watching him and others like him, and we are forcing him to behave as a judge should. We have the power in the palms of our hands to influence change for the better. Together, we can influence change. Please share this widely. And during that Race Relations Council meeting, and then, Tuesday, that morning, when the jury was being selected, and Peter Johnson told you to go out and thank all those people. We had some 20 people who showed up that Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Oh, that was just incredible, because at this point, I remember Peter Johnson, man, and so interesting because, Peter Johnson actually was the attorney that my birth mother went to. He was a brand new attorney when she says, someone took my baby and I don't know what to do to get him back. And he was brand new. So for him to be my attorney all those years later, anyway, I just had to throw that in there. So
wow, yeah.
Right? He said to us, he says, Loren, you're going to be your own best attorney and detective. And so get in there and look for things. And I took the police report because I had never had it. And we had even found that his 4 eyewitnesses that were in there were dead people. They weren't even alive. And Judge Wiley would not let us put that in. Yeah, they were all dead people because his girlfriend, the accuser's girlfriend, ran a hospice. And and she had changed the names of people, put their last name as their middle name and a hyphen. But when we were going through Facebook, we were like, well, who are these people on here? So we went to his page, and sure enough, there was one post from 3 years before that found 2 of the names that had been moved and highlighted them. And then we went in there and we said, wait a minute. And then we said, that's that person's real. We clicked on it, took us to her page. It was his current girlfriend. She was actually the one providing the names. And then we did obituaries. We found these names. We started Googling the names and found out that all but one were dead. And the other one was on a morphine drip at Bronson Hospital at the time of the supposed incident. Wouldn't let us turn it in. It's inadmissible. All these different things, just like the 40-some letters from people in the community. They ran out of people to recuse. That's why a woman from my actual dentist's office was on the jury, because they had run out. And do you remember when they asked that woman, they asked her, so since you know him, if we were to say, the prosecutor said, if we were to say something that is against what you believe, would you believe what Attorney Johnson is saying just because you know him? And then she said, yep, I sure will. I sure will believe it because I know Loren. And there was nothing they could do about that. There was not one person of color, not
right.
Asian, not Spanish. Everybody there was white. Now, there's a point for this that is important, because I want to say this because, this is from the Black victim, if you will. And most people, I think a lot of people would have jumped at this opportunity, but it didn't feel right. And I was after we took the pictures and the thing with the cup and all that, and I was going to go in the front of the courthouse to get the tether cut off. And the Herald Palladium reporter came walking up to me. And I said, and you know who it was? It was the same reporter that interviewed us at the Listen to Your Mother thing.
John Matuzak.
It was John. And he said, do you have a statement for the Herald Palladium regarding not having had a jury of your peers? And I said, for a second, I want to go, well, hell yeah. But then I heard the voice of reason. And it said to me, but you did have a jury of your peers. Because your peers were peers who heard the ring of truth, knew it when they heard it. I'm going to tell you what I'll never forget. If I live to be 1,000 years old, I'd never forget this. When Judge Wiley, in the closing arguments, it was my attorney, it was the prosecutor, my attorney, then back to the prosecutor. He got 2-1. Mm-hmm. Prosecutor said on the very last redirect or whatever, yeah, Attorney Johnson would have you all believe that there is an issue with race in this town, and there's no prejudice or racism in this town, and you guys kind of, there was some, like, yeah, people were like,
Yeah, here's the way I remember it. So Peter Johnson says, I would like to point out to those of you on the jury that my defendant is black. You all are white. And then the prosecutor gets up and he says, this is not a racist process. And it was true. We had been so quiet and so good
yes.
the whole time. And all of our little sounds like, huh, all made one big sound. And Wiley flips out, points at us. That is unacceptable.
He stood up.
And threw us out of the courtroom.
Out, all of you.
And totally outed himself in that moment. He had been on his best behavior that whole 2 days.
Yep.
And then in that one moment, it was like, boom, he lost it.
Well, I have to give kudos to Peter Johnson, because another thing he told me after the first day, because I had to choose whether I wanted to go on. Because that takes care of the poison from the tree or whatever thing. If you talk about your own stuff that's out there. And I just said, that was the beginning of, the truth is the truth. That was then, this is now. And so, but he also said, and when you do that, don't answer the prosecutor, answer the jury. Every time he asks you a question, look at them and talk to them. Excuse me. And that's what I did. But what happened that was life-changing for me, because Peter Johnson, I don't know, you guys were being escorted out, so you didn't see this part. Peter Johnson had his head in his hand, looking down, just he and I at the table. I'm watching you all get escorted out, and the bailiff is standing at parade rest at the door when he shuts it, and you guys are on the other side of it. So it's just me, the prosecution, the jury, Judge Wiley, and Peter Johnson. And the judge is still standing, and then he took his pen, and he pointed, after pointing at the door, he stood there frozen, pointing until the bailiff went to parade rest. Then he took the same finger and went right over to the jury and said, I am demanding that each of you, how did he put it? Forgets what you just saw. You did not just do something in the equivalent of that didn't happen. Right. And then that was the moment, because they watched after we were all looking at the door, all of our heads, I looked at them and they were looking at me. Peter Johnson still looking at his hand. Then Judge Wiley breaks the silence by moving his finger over to the jury and demands that they strike that from the memory. That's what he said. Yeah. I demand that you strike that from your memory. How do you do that?
Yeah, you can't unsee that shit.
When he said that, here's what happened. The jury looked at him. Their faces kind of contorted. They looked back at me, and when they looked back at me, they looked away from me as the jury. When they looked at him and looked back at me, they became the accused. I was the jury. They looked back at me after that ludicrous request from the judge. Yeah, it switched roles. They were now on trial, and I was now the jury. And that's when it switched. Yeah. That is when I believe if anybody was on the fence, Judge Wiley, thank you. He just pushed everybody over to one side. Yeah. Because they were ashamed of what they had just seen. And they didn't want that. No one wants to get into the elevator with a wet labradoodle in case it shakes all day long wherever you go. You may not have the dog on the leash,
but you're going to smell like that dog.
That labradoodle. That's right. And so, that was truly an amazing moment. No one could have ever prepped me for that. 13 people. Yeah. Completely changed. Yeah. And, and the thing about the calling all colors, someone had mentioned it at church the week before, and I had forgotten totally about it. And the night before, that Friday night before the calling all colors, it was in the morning. I was late too. I wasn't planning on going. And the night before, Brian was supposed to leave and come back to Chicago. And I thought he was gone, and I'm throwing stuff in a bag. I'm going to run. And he said he was halfway down the stairs and something said, stop and turn around. he turned around and he came back, and the door wasn't shut all the way. He just pushed it. And I was in mid-toss into a duffel bag. And he goes, "What are you doing?" So then he wouldn't leave me. That way, so the next morning, I shot up out of the bed and said, "Hey, that thing's at the hospital." Something woke me up and said, "Get there now." I just threw on stuff. I didn't brush my teeth or anything because it was like from like 8 to 10 or something. And it was like, I only had like maybe 30 minutes and it was over with. And I didn't even know what it was all about. Someone said, "Get there." And I was standing in the back and I was listening and people were going up and I knew I wanted to speak, but I was scared. Then Marletta Seats was speaking because she was running for something. And I know her because she's kind of in my birth family, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to cut Marletta off. I'm going to cut her off and go up there. And because she stayed at her seat, if you remember. Walked up there and got in the mic and put it out there. And so, you know what I think it all boils down to, what I'm so grateful for, is that when we find the courage to speak what others will not speak, when we are able to face what maybe just yesterday in our own journeys we were not able to face, but we are ready to now. I know that the promise says that where two or more of us comes together, something wonderful is bound to happen. And I say that every morning on my show now. I'm so grateful. I don't care how many numbers are up in the corner as far as people watching, because as long as there's one there and one here, the promise is fulfilled. And that's enough for me. And that day, I saw that there is healing possible in those two towns. It is there.
Yeah.
But if people don't come together and look at the court watch program is still happening.
Yeah.
Today.
That started that day.
It started that day.
Yeah. Elizabeth McCree then created that court watch.
Yeah. And you know how she got involved, because I was like, at first I was so paranoid. I was like, well, Peter Johnson's white. How do I know? I need somebody to watch him. And so that's when I went to her. And she would tell me along the way, everything he's telling you is right.
Yeah.
Do this exactly like he said.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, boom, boom. And that's where she came into it, to pick that up afterwards, because even she was shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. And she said the whole courthouse was talking about it.
It went like rampant, wildfire.
Yeah. Let me tell you a couple of takeaways that I have. So I was sitting next to Brian when we were waiting. Judge Wiley did let us come back into the room for the reading of the verdict. Mm-hmm. So two things before that, even the first day when we all showed up, first thing in the morning, like 20 white folks and one black man, Harold Bragg, because he's married to Carla and she's white, these people from the Race Relations Council meeting and others who probably saw my post had showed up at the courthouse. So we're all waiting out in the hallway because the proposed jury is seated in the gallery.
Right.
So once the jury was selected, they're filing out, and Peter Johnson told you to go out and thank those people for being there for you. Mm-hmm. So as the jury is filing out through this gauntlet of, white folks on either side of that hallway, and you're hugging us and thanking us for being there, like it was artful from that moment until that moment he said, "My defendant is black, you all are white." Like that was just pure brilliance on his part. And then sitting next to Brian and holding both of his hands in both of mine, waiting for the verdict to be read. And he was just absolutely shuddering. And that, that feeling, here I go, it's always going to happen at some point.
Me too.
That feeling that through his body, and how, this was his future and you guys were in love and you deserve to have a future together. But for that moment, so that's, I will never, ever forget that. And just what joy it was to be at your wedding
Yeah.
And,
4 years, a couple weeks ago already,
aw,
and what we've built and just the things and it's like, the first week we went on our first date, the next week he canceled on me because he said, I can't make it. My first cousin committed suicide. And I was thinking, now I've heard of a lot of excuses to get out of a second date, but man, really? You're going to kill a family member? Right. So it was like something from the beginning. What would tear most people apart is the grout that stuck us together.
yeah.
From the very beginning. And I remember saying to Brian that very first day, I said, if you hang around, you're going to find that things in my life are a little different than most. And I said,
That's an understatement, Loren.
I still remind him of that. I said, remember when he goes, oh my God, and I said, but I'm pretty sure that you're something special. And I believe we were meant for each other. And I'm most likely going to pursue you. And he just kind of looked at me in that therapist kind of way and then said, okay. and we've been together ever since. And it's just a blessing. We count ourselves so blessed for the type of people that we have in our lives. And when you look back over the shoulder of what we've all experienced here together, it's just remarkable.
Yeah.
It could never be chalked up to coincidence or happenstance or out of the blue. It is purpose and purposeful. I have learned what I feel is the most important takeaway for me, which has helped me help literally thousands of people since that time that we all experienced this in the same manner. I've helped people with this. I've learned that all we have to do every day is get up and do things that we mean. When you do something that you mean, it instantly starts to become meaningful somewhere in this world. And, to be able, I just said this to someone this morning. I never in a million years, you could have never convinced me that I would say it and mean it. I remember I said to What Is Greater Than Me, this was like 4 years ago, and it's even better now. I said, man, I'm so happy. This is so wonderful. If you could just guarantee me you could give me 5 additional minutes on the back end of this journey, if you need me to go back to the very first breath and live every one of them up to today again, just to get 5 extra minutes, I'll do it. I'll go through it all again. I'll take every pain. I'll take every betrayal. I'll take everything that hurt. Why? Because every one of those things led me to you. Everything that ever tried to stop me led me to this moment with you two right here, right now.
Yep.
Every single one of them. And so I encourage people, count it all joy. I don't care what it feels like tonight. There is joy in the morning. Trust me. All you have to do is get up and stay up. Pull yourself up. Reach your hand up. Whatever it is, just remember, up is the direction. Up is the direction. Even if you can only raise your eyebrow, raise them. It's just a beautiful thing. And I'm just so grateful for people like you and Dan here and all this time later that this is still important enough for you to have it as a topic for your very first podcast. So I'm just so grateful. Really.
It is critical. This, more and more, I probably think about this at least weekly, if not almost daily. I feel like every single one of Judge Wiley's criminal court cases should be under review, and that there are probably many defendants, especially Black ones, who should get do-overs because of having had him for a judge. That there are people likely sitting in jail right now who deserve do-overs because they didn't get due process. Yep. And one of the things is, about that day that you were arrested, you were never questioned. There was no investigation.
Nope.
And that could have solved so many things. And that never happened.
Nope. They never tried to subpoena any of the so-called witnesses, even a fender bender. They go to the other party and they go, what happened? But here it was, looking at 45 years. I would have gotten 45 years.
Yeah.
That was the rest of my life.
Yep.
And when you look at the things I get to do today, it would have robbed the world.
Exactly. And that is my whole entire point, Loren, right there.
Mhm.
Because what you have done with your freedom, and not just for yourself, but for other people, for the world,
Mhm.
is it shouldn't be a miracle, but it is. You know, all of the things that happen were all little pieces of a miracle that allows you to be free today and to do these things that you're doing. But we all kind of have these moments, you know, when life is at the cusp, you know, and we have to decide which way. You could have been bitter. You could have, but then share what you told me before we started about Judge Gary Bruce too, because I like that contrast. You know,
is, and it's because, and you know what I love about that, because now I know this part too. I didn't then, but I do now. Nothing in life is ever about just one thing.
Yeah,
duplicity is everywhere. It is a part of everything. And Judge Bruce. Why do you keep saying doctor? Judge Gary Bruce had friended me long before any of this stuff happened. He remembered me from crossing in the early days of my addiction, crossing through his courtroom. And he was one of those judges there, just like Judge Fields, who pulled me aside, sidebar, and said, you know, you shouldn't be here. There's something different about you. I've seen enough people come through here, and you're not one that should stick. Whatever you need to do, get through this. I'd hate to see you miss what your life has for you. That's what Judge Fields says. And then Judge Bruce had said something similar to me. And he reached out when I was building not Apology Accepted, that was years ago, by Design. And he said, I've seen what you've been doing and just want you to know, keep up the good work. And then it wasn't so long, I forgot he was even on my friends list, till about maybe 3 months ago. He commented on something and I was like, oh, and I went back and I called the courthouse and I left something on his voicemail. And I texted him through LinkedIn because he had just friended me on LinkedIn. We were friends on Facebook and he found me on LinkedIn, connected with me there. And I put it in and he said to me, thank you so much for reaching back and thank you for the kind words. And he goes, I can't tell you how it blesses me and touches my heart, something like that, because you see so many that you never hear from again.
yeah.
It's so nice to see even one that you knew you were right about prove you right. And so that's, you know, I feel like this. I don't think any job like that. Here's the difference between Judge Fields, Judge Bruce, and Judge Wiley. I believe that Judge Fields and Judge Bruce were living their natural God-given purpose. This was their calling on their life. Judge Wiley, at some point, it became just another job.
Yeah.
Cookie cutter.
Yep.
And that shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah.
You know, because there are people, I know if a person, you know, okay, I have a 12th grade education, but I'm kind of bright just anyway. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. That's from living through foster care. You're a kid, no more. You're an adult in a little kid's body.
Yeah.
So, you know, everything was a case study for me. So that's what helped me move through. But I want to say this. There needs to be more linking of arms, like what happened in my case with the Calling All Colors, you know, and people saying, here, I will stand beside you. The only way those 20-some people of Caucasian persuasion could have done that in good conscience, because they didn't care what anybody else saw or thought. They cared about what was right and what they knew to be true. And they did not put themselves above or below Loren. they place themselves exactly where we're meant to be as people who are together. Where is the power of we, power of me, and they place themselves beside me.
Yeah.
They walked right beside me, and so they gave me something that I can now take and continue to give to the world, and I plan to do that for as long as what is greater than me says that I can do it.
Well, it is an honor to walk beside you at any and every opportunity. And I am grateful for your capacity, for everything that you went through, in the foster care system, of having mothers that you wanted to squeeze tight and hold on to, and other mothers who didn't deserve to be called mothers. And then, this experience with, a judge like Judge Wiley, other judges like Judge Bruce, and, your capacity to take each individual at face value and not have that bitterness, against people who look like me, or, any of those things. There is definitely a higher purpose in why you and I are friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want everyone to remember this. If you forget everything else you've heard here today, just understand that wherever you find yourself in any given moment, we are each, wherever we find ourselves, we are there in order to choose for ourselves. And, that day when the reporter came up and I could have jumped right on there, yeah, you're damn tootin', I didn't have any people of color, but that wasn't the primary truth.
Yeah.
The overwhelming truth was that, yes, but I had 13 people that didn't look like me who knew the truth.
Yep.
And I could have had a black person who held a grudge against anything. So the thing about it is, don't bitch about something until you've celebrated something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Celebrate what's right before you go, because I feel like this. If you stay in one spot, if you wake up and you're feeling shitty, sorry about that French, but
no, that's okay on this show.
Okay. Right. Yeah. If you wake up and you're feeling, pretty darn bad, all you got to do is stay where you're at and look around and just look at all the things that are greater than you. That's anything that has a life force or has a force upon life, wind, water, fire, or a moth, a wasp, a roach. Anything, a flower can bloom and I can't. A bee can sting and I can't. All those things are greater than me because they can do things that I can't. And I celebrate them. So when I look around, I can stay in one spot. And I can never stop finding things to be grateful for. If you do that, I guarantee you, even if the sun sets and you're still in that same spot, you will never run out of things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Start your day with an attitude of gratitude. Be grateful from the smallest to the largest. I tell people this, and I'll end it with this. It is true. I know it to be true. When each of us understands that before stepping across any threshold of opportunity, we acknowledge with our own truths, everything you have lived through makes you an authority, and it is your truth. Put them in your hand and wave that hand across that threshold. You have now given what is greater than you permission to walk before you, stand beside you, and cover the rear behind you when things are happening that you have no clue to, because as humans, we will never see everything coming. Just like I didn't know those people were dead on that police report. I didn't know. But what I did know was the truth, that I was innocent.
Yeah.
That's where I stayed because that's all I had.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Well, Loren, thank you so very much. I'm so grateful to have finally had this conversation. We will do it justice, I promise.
Oh, no doubts.
And I am so thankful that you are on this earth. I'm so thankful that you came into my life. And now Dan gets to be thankful that you've come into his too.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
I am.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Kim, and your boys and your husband, your dad. and all the people that were supportive and that were chosen to be a part of that experience that Tuesday. And the most important part is that they each woke up and chose to be there in return.
Yeah. Yep. They showed up.
Amazing.
Yep.
It's just amazing. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Peace and love, my friend.
Same to you.
All right. You take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.